News, facts, opinion. Lace up those kicks and hold on tight. It's about to go down. Welcome to the Conservative Minded Podcast, a place where realness and rights trump emotions and fear. If you're looking for conservative talk with a soulful, educated vibe, then it's time to crank it up. Now, here's your host, a published author, a righteous brother, a soldier, scholar, and patriot, Mr. Helluva Robert Waples.
Hey, everybody. I want to welcome you to another episode of the podcast, Conservative Minded Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Helluva, a.k.a. Mr. Robert Waples. I want to thank you for tuning in this week. We've got an exciting week for you. We're going to talk about CPAC down at the Gaylord Hotel in the National Harbor, talk about the National Anthem. We're going to talk about Congress and the future of the country. But first and foremost, I want to let everyone know out there that we lost some people down in Alabama to tornadoes this week, and our thoughts and prayers here at Conservative Minded will, go out to those out there that were affected by the tornado. I think the last count was 23 people were killed, and including children, and that's never a good thing. There was another unarmed black male shooting by police. We'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I want to go ahead and talk to you. I had a pretty good week this week. It was a little stressful. Got certified in some things that I've been wanting to do for some years now, and I finally got it accomplished. And so that's underneath my belt. I'm very happy about that. Weather is still acting pretty janky. But it's March right now. It was February, and March is always in like a lion and out like a lamb. We got about 8 inches of snow in the Northeast and a whole lot of rain down here in the Mid-Atlantic states, and some really crazy weather all over the rest of the country. And so shout out to everybody out there in the Midwest, Utah, Colorado, and Arizona, and all over the country, down in Georgia. Just kind of hang in there. Spring and summer will be here before you know it. But I want to go into my trip down to CPAC. My trip to CPAC was rather interesting. I came out of there with something that I can honestly say no one else has. Wound up bumping into a gentleman that walked around. He was rather young looking, worked for one of the online news outlets. And he had some headphones on. And so I introduced myself and gave him my business card. I asked him what he was listening to because he had this expression on his face while he was listening to it. And it seemed rather interesting. So I was thinking he might be able to, say some Post Malone or maybe some, Tribe Called Quest or something like that. And he said that he was able to actually get his hands on the proposal of the Democrat Congress to replace the national anthem of the United States. And that's what he was listening to. So I asked him, I said, you've got to be kidding me, right? Now, me being a retired military and being a red-blooded American, I've actually, fought several occasions on behalf of this country. And so I was rather, immediately took offense to it. But I was equally as curious. I wanted to know exactly what it was that the Congress wanted to propose to replace the national anthem of the United States. And so he just kind of looked at me and looked around and smiled and cracked this little smirk, and he took these headphones and he put them on my head. He said, I want you to listen to this. Needless to say, I was dumbfounded at the end of what I listened to. And so I just kind of looked down and said, you've got to be kidding me. And he shook his head. He said, nah, they're very serious. And I said, well, it's very fitting. And so we went ahead and chatted for a little while longer. And then finally I asked him, I said, so what would I have to do in order to get a copy of that CD? And he told me, he says, you know what? He says, I've got it burned 1,000 times and it's sitting in the cloud offline somewhere. He says, I'll tell you what. So he reaches into his CD player and he extracts the CD and he hands it to me. He says, my present to you. And I just kind of looked at him. I said, really? And he says, yeah. He says, just make sure that you don't push it out there anywhere too soon. He says, no one really has that yet. And they don't know that we have it. And I said, oh, wow. I said, okay. So over here at the Conservative Minded, when I got back, we put our heads together and we thought about whether or not we should release it. We could really make a name for ourselves. Drop it to Fox News, drop it to Breitbart, all the other online news outlets and whatnot. And so since I had given this gentleman my word that I wouldn't release it publicly, I kind of am going to go back a little bit on my word, and I'm going to play it for you guys tonight. I want you to listen to it. I want you to give me your thoughts and opinions on it. Tell me what you think about it, and I hope that you appreciate the lengths that I went through for my audience, for you guys out there to listen to this, and tell me what you think.
You're listening to the Conservative Minded Podcast with Robert Waples.
So I bet you're wondering why I played the Soviet National Anthem of the Bolshoi, performed by the Bolshoi Theater. Because, folks, ladies and gentlemen, if we're not careful, that's our future. That's our future right there. I couldn't think of a better way to put it other than the way that those who have come before us and those who have failed every single time before us. And it just kind of pisses me off to see the direction that this country is headed in. You know, when the Declaration of Independence was signed, it was signed by 56 Americans. Of those 56 Americans, 9 of them who signed their names at the bottom of that piece of paper, 9 of them lost their lives and died in combat in the Revolutionary War or wounds sustained in that war. 5 of those people were captured and imprisoned. 12 of those people's houses that signed their name at the bottom of that the bottom of that Declaration of Independence, their houses were burned to the ground. 12 of them. 17 of them lost everything that they owned. And not one single one of those 56 people defected. Not a single one of them. Just like their honor when they signed it at the bottom of that Declaration of Independence, their country and their honor went on to live on. This is the stock that we come from. This is what makes this country who and what we are. And to turn around and to see everything that we did, everything that our ancestors and the ones that came before us, risked, even with the black people in the Underground Railroad and trying to escape from slavery and trying to get up north, to the Native Americans, being pushed around the country and having to fight wars and whatnot and everything that followed after that, to throw it all away for promises of pie in the sky makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. I stand by and I listen to, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, just tout how wonderful socialism and communism, basically. Socialism is nothing but communist light. It's communism light. And Bernie Sanders. I actually had one of my friends tell me not too long ago, I'm kind of partial to Bernie Sanders. What? So you're okay with this country going into a completely socialist direction where 70% of your entire paycheck is going to be confiscated by the U.S. government and they're going to dictate to you what it is that you can and can't do, when and when you can't do it? It goes against everything that makes us who we are. And for me to just, and other veterans and other red-blooded patriotic Americans, those who didn't serve, had family members that fought in the Civil War, that had family members that fought in all the world wars in Vietnam, and you got your young ones over there in Afghanistan and Syria right now, and we fought in Iraq and all across this globe in Japan, and all these to holding Old Glory over our head and catching bullets, stopping them clean in midair. For what? So that we could throw all of that away for a promise to change to a system that doesn't work. It's never worked. Socialism has never worked in any country that's ever been tried in. It just doesn't. And this is not the country that has anything online or even remotely in common with a socialist or communist government. I remember back in the day when I was a young boy, I used to fill out an application. I've been working since I was 14 years old, and pushing shopping carts at the local mall, bagging groceries. And I remember one of the questions on the application was, "Do you advocate the violent overthrow of the United States government? Are you a communist, or do you know anybody in your family that is a communist?" I mean, it used to be outlawed, or not even necessarily outlawed, but it used to be taboo to even be associated or openly admit something like that. We've got representatives in the Congress, in the great halls of this country, 50 miles from where I'm at right now, that are openly advocating for socialism and communism. We've got a Muslim female by the name of Representative Omar up there who is just absolutely anti-Israel, our only ally, our only solid ally in the Middle East. And she's up there making anti-Semitic statements left and right. She's even being attacked right now by her own party. Things are starting to spiral completely out of control in this country. And we're going into gun confiscation now. We're aborting babies while they're alive, which is basically murder. And just openly advocating it. Meanwhile, they're erasing anything that has anything to do with religion or Christianity, namely. And this is the direction. This is the direction. That's why I played the Soviet National Anthem. That's what that was that you just heard. That's why I played the Soviet National Anthem, because that's the direction that this country is going into. I remember back when Hugo Chavez got elected down there in Venezuela, and everybody, socialism works. And you had all these representatives and these Congress people and senators, even Hollywood movie actors like Sean Penn and George Clooney flying down there and just kissing this dude's ass. And he turned around and took one of the most beautiful countries in all of South America and ran it straight into the ground. They were eating their zoo animals. They were eating their pets to survive, eating trash in the streets. Now the government is down there openly killing civilians that are protesting against the government. It's out of control. It's out of control what's going on in this country right here. We're advocating for open borders. I don't know about you, but I don't plan on leaving my door unlocked this evening. Not while I'm asleep. Not while I'm awake. My door stays locked. I'm sure yours does too. We're bordering and tinkering on the edge of common sense here anymore, and that's exactly what this Soviet National Anthem and this socialism and communism, it's that step towards utopia. Let me tell you something, people. Utopia doesn't exist. Utopia is exactly what you make it. I don't see people lined up trying to get into socialist countries. I don't see caravans crossing hundreds and thousands of miles to break into Venezuela. I don't see boats lined up off the shore of Cuba. I don't see boats lined up trying to get into China. We've got cargo ships coming over here that are full of dead immigrants, willing to do anything to get out of these countries. You ever heard of some of these leaders, Pol Pot and Ho Chi Minh? How many people? Do you have any idea how many people communism and socialism is responsible for murdering? I mean, it would make Genghis Khan killed enough people in Mongolia when he was a ruler to lower the Earth's temperature by 1 degree. That's how many people he's responsible for killing. Communism and socialism makes Genghis Khan look like a choir boy. And it never works. It never, ever works. It sounds great. It's just like the helicopter. The helicopter technically, on paper, isn't supposed to fly. We all know it does. It looks great on paper until you put it into practice. And you confiscate and confiscate and you take and you give it away to those that didn't earn it until eventually there's nothing left to take. And then what happens? You know, one of the people that I look up to the most when it comes to conservative commentary is a gentleman by the name of Andrew Wilkow. If you have a satellite radio, I recommend you listen to his show. It's every weekday at 12 o'clock on Patriot Channel 125 on Sirius XM. And he breaks it down perfectly every single time. You know, socialism is for the people. It's not for the socialist. You know, these people like Al Gore, they live in these mansions and burn fossil fuels in their private jets, to AOC, who's taking hundreds of thousands of dollars of Uber rides in these big V8 bulletproof vehicles and stuff. And now we've got a proposal literally on the table called the Green New Deal. And I'm quite sure it was written in a green crayon, and deal was spelled D-E-L, or D-E-E-L. Because she's got to be one of the dumbest people that's ever held a political office. And I've actually held a political office. I won a general election at one point in time in my life. Don't know if you knew that or not, but you know that now. So I can actually sit here and say that I do not think that she is a very intelligent person at all. And here she is up here advocating for, she's very proud of herself because she managed to get 25,000 jobs thrown out of New York City, no doubt. where Amazon was going to come up there and set up another headquarters too, and put out 25,000 jobs where the average person that was working for them was going to make approximately $125,000 a year. She managed to run them out of New York City and then turns around and brags about it. Oh, that's life-changing money to people who are struggling to try to make ends meet every single day. And here we have our representatives up here openly advocating for that type of behavior and being proud of it. And I don't understand at what point in time did we take a turn in this country and stop being proud of who and what we are. Yes, we're all colors. That's what makes us that makes us us. That's what makes us different from everybody else. That's what makes us, prosperous. That's what makes us, so much better off than everyone else in this entire world, every country that's ever been created. Old Glory stands for everybody. The red, white, and blue stands for everybody. It doesn't matter what color you are. As long as you're in this country and you're a citizen, that red, white, and blue represents you. And now we've turned into a country that we literally don't like ourselves anymore. And we're finding ways more and more every day that goes by to rip at the fabric of what makes us Americans. We had 500,000 Americans die in a civil war to change the wrongs of this country. But it's not enough. We had the Republican Party openly advocate in 1964 to give blacks the right to vote, women's suffrage, and give women the right to vote. There was a Democrat president that was in office that literally went from house to house of Japanese Americans and took them away to concentration camps. I mean, yes, every country has, wrongs in their past, but we should not let the past define exactly who we are going into the future. I do understand the different minority plights. Trust me, I'm a black man. I know what it's like to get pulled over by the police. Hell, I was the police at one point in time. Okay? And now we still have police officers out here. They're scared out of their minds. They've lowered the standards in the police academy. They've lowered their recruiting standards. And now you've got police officers out here that are literally terrified every single time that they get out of their car. And every time they get themselves into a pickle, every time they get themselves into a jam, the very first words out of their mouths is, well, I was scared for my life. No, you were just scared. And you're shooting unarmed people. I'm quite sure that there are quite a few white people out here that have had their lives taken from them, just like black people have, by police officers in unjustifiable shootings. We need to increase our standards. We need to try to decrease the risk and liability and the possibility of accidentally killing or incidentally killing somebody that was unarmed. These are the ills and the social woes that we deal with, but we have to deal with them because these things come along with being in a free society. There was a founding father that said, I would rather take dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery any day. If you were to go back, and I hear a lot in the black community nowadays about resegregation. And basically, they want to set up their own black communities. They want to set up their own Hispanic communities. They want to set up their own Asian communities. And now I will admit that nobody knows what a black person needs to learn more so than a black parent that has children. There's a lot of things in the school, and our educational system is broken right now. But one thing I do not advocate and I do not concur with is separating the races again. A lot of people fought and died to try to level the playing field and try to separate and try to, integrate. There's a lot of people that fought on both sides of the fence there. But don't let all that be in vain. Don't be disillusioned. Don't let the CNNs of the world and the MSNBCs of the world poison your minds about these pie in the sky and socialist utopias that will not, and will never exist. The Soviet Union used to be and was at one point one of the strongest nations on the planet. They had nuclear weapons. They had armies and tanks and jets, fighter planes, and they collapsed. And you know who caused them to collapse? Ronald Reagan and socialism. Or excuse me, I'm so pissed off right now. Ronald Reagan and capitalism. We spent them into oblivion. And now what do we have? We have a runaway national debt. You know, we're writing checks that we can't cash. We're piling on more and more and more. It seems like nowadays our politicians are up there in Washington, D.C. You know, you got the Republicans on one side, you got the Democrats on the other, and they're all touting the exact same thing. But they're saying, well, I can spend the country's money better than you can. Vote for me. I think they're all wrong. I think they're all incorrect. I think what we need is less government, not more. This Green New Deal is a nightmare. It would absolutely end life as we know it. And we've got every single Democrat candidate that's going to run for president in 2020 signing off and co-signing and supporting this Green New Deal, which is what I'm referring to. And it's terrible. It's pathetic is what it is. You know, it makes my stomach turn. Just to sit here, and I say that a lot because it really does make my stomach turn to sit back and see what it is, you know, the direction that this country is heading. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are people out there in this country, there are citizens, everyday citizens that get up in the morning, they put their pants on one leg at a time, and they get up and they drink their coffee and they rub their sleepy eyes and they kiss their family members goodbye and they get in the car and they take that 25-mile journey to a job. And they work, and they pay their taxes, and they support their flag, and they pray to their God, and they collect their guns, and they go to softball games, and they eat hot dogs on the 4th of July, and they love this country, and they're willing to die for it as well. There's a lot of people out here that are not going to go quietly into that good night if you try, if the government, if the Democrat Congress tries to, I mean, it's just... I'm more pissed off at the Republican Party than I am the Democrat Party because at least now we know who the Democrats are. We know who they really are. They're the party of Jim Crow. They're the party of the KKK. They're the party of, you know, unequal rights. They're the party of white supremacy. They're the party that's who they are. They never changed. They never flipped sides. All they did was just pull that white hood down a little bit further so you couldn't see the color of their skin. And then lie to you while they're talking to you through a white hood. And a lot of us are out here buying this garbage. We actually believe this shit. You've got to be kidding me. How stupid do you really have to be to believe that the Democrat Party gives a damn about you or your family, that they can spend your money that you worked hard for better than you can? I don't believe it. You shouldn't believe it either. This is a time, especially the way that we're headed right now, this is a time where we need to hit our knees and pray to God. This is a time where we need to grab each other's hands and lift each other up. This is a time where we need to look each other in the eye with a firm handshake and say, if you need me, I'll be there. I might not have much, but whatever I've got, it's yours. This is what we need. This is who we are. This is how we got to where we are and where we're going to go when we get there. This is the future. Everyone wants to be like us. They're still fighting over there in France. They're fighting down there in Venezuela. They're trying to overthrow governments in Syria. And this is crazy anymore. And we've got a government up here that just doesn't give a damn about how we feel. They don't care. This is a representative republic. This is not a democracy. The word democracy, the word Democrat does not appear in the Constitution not one time. We have elections. We elect our representatives. We send them to Washington, D.C., and they vote to represent our interests, where they come from. Right now, we've got politicians up there that just don't care anything about you, don't care anything about me, don't care about us. And we're all suffering behind it. Black, white, Hispanic, we're all suffering behind it. I just want you to wake up. I want you to crack a book. Do some research. Find out who these people really are. Expose them for who they really are. You're smarter and you're better than this. I believe in each and every single one of you. Thanks for listening to my podcast. Come back next week.
You've been listening to the Conservative Minded Podcast with Mr. Helluva Robert Waples. Make sure you subscribe and reach out to us on Twitter at conserve_minded. Email is robert@conservativeminded.net. And like our Facebook page at Conservative Minded, or give us a call at 240-233-6649. Catch you next time on the Conservative Minded Podcast.